In this special edition of Sheriff's Report, Ozzie Knezovich sits down with Jay Pounder to discuss the story behind the Shea Investigations.
Throughout the documents that you have provided me, and ladies and gentlemen, the scope of the documents, in order for me to have brought it here today, the file, just one of the files, I would have had to spend about an hour at my computer downloading it from the computer to an external drive. It's that much information. It took me roughly a month to scratch the surface of all of the information. And in that information, it's no longer about bringing the community back together, putting it back together. It's about forming their own government.
Yes, very much so.
And this isn't about, forming their own government until the United States is able to come back and put everything back together. This is, period, forming your own government, your own nation, if you will, your own nation state, if you will. And I won't say if you will, it is.
That's exactly what their plan is.
And this whole mentality, this whole culture isn't new. That's the thing you need to understand here. This is not new. This goes back decades. And it is very much centered in a really misguided religious belief. A religious, I refer to it as a cult type religious belief, Christian identity, or Dominionism. And when I say that, the first thing that Matt's defense teams come up with, and and folks, you're hearing them all over. If you're on Facebook and you look at this, and let's say you're a fence sitter right now, who to believe? Well, here's the harsh reality for all you fence sitters, is that the documents are real. These came from Matt Shea. And Matt's connections, people he has shared the stage with, are of the Christian identity movement.
Yeah, that's correct. Pastor John Weaver, some of those that are out there. I mean, like you said, Sheriff, this goes back decades. I mean, it goes all the way back to the white supremacists over in northern Idaho. It builds off of that movement. They themselves aren't white supremacists, but it takes a lot of cues from that movement. And you've had former Senator John Smith on who's talked about that.
And if you really look at the historical fact, it's not just that they built on Christian identity. Christian identity was their basis, and they built, Butler built his Aryan Nations church off Christian identity formations. John Weaver is our old school Confederate white supremacist. No ifs, ands, buts, or ors about it. You can't deny it. The videos that he has put out are clear, and Matt has shared the stage multiple times with these people. So it's hard for Matt to start claiming, no, I'm not. This is not. No, it is. It is who he is. This is who he has become. And I say that become part in that either he was a very good chameleon or he got trapped in his own echo chamber. I haven't been able to figure it out yet. My gut tells me this is who he was always. He just duped a lot of people into getting him where he was, and when he thought he had the power and the reputation to sustain his persona, he clicked on the real Matt. You would have better insight on that than me.
Sure. My feelings are in the very beginning that Matt was really well intentioned. I think when he went into politics, it was, with the Republican Party, conservative, less taxes, less government, more freedom. I mean, those are all concepts we can all go along with. It's something that really attracted me to be able to work alongside him. I mean, I think even you would agree with some of those concepts as well. But as time progressed on, and yes, the power grew, and the influences, I think that it's something very key there, that the influences that were whispering in his ear, that come from Northeast Washington, that come from North Idaho, that's subtly changed him, and he became more and more the thing that he hated, and has taken on that persona, and now is doubling down on some of the things that, he's called me, he's called you, he's called others who have come out to speak about it. And so I think in the beginning, good intentions. Once the power took, and once he was able to kind of establish a very strong believing base, then he was able to move forward some of these ideas and things that they've been talking about for years.
And the reality is for this group is they continually label people. Anybody that it's either 100% belief in what they say. It's not like I can believe 80% and still be part of the team. It's 100% I have to believe and follow doctrine.
Yes.
It's fanatical to a point. I wouldn't say to a point, it is fanatical.
Right.
And that's where Matt and my paths greatly separated. I warned Matt Shea in December of 2009. I will never forget the night. I will never forget where we were. We were out in Spokane Valley. We were out at the old Spokane Valley Mall. They had just held a Tea Party rally. Matt and I were standing outside, and this lady came up to both of us and said, "Sheriff, are you ready for Christmas?" I went, "Yes, ma'am, I am. I think I've got it all taken care of." And she, "No, Sheriff, are you ready for Christmas?" "Yes, ma'am, I'm ready for Christmas." "No, you're not catching what I'm saying, Sheriff. Are you ready for Christmas?" I said, "Why don't you explain it to me?" "Well, we've had a constitutional convention. We have elected our officers. We have selected our Supreme Court. We have issued the warrants of habeas corpus. And we intend on executing Christmas." And I went, "Okay." She walks away, and Matt looks at me and says, "Do you understand what she just said?" And I said, "Matt, I understand exactly what this lady just said." Folks, I have studied this movement since they attempted to recruit me some 28 years ago. Yes, they tried to recruit me. They were recruiting heavy in the law enforcement ranks at that time. This is a time of McVeigh, Timothy McVeigh. This is the time of Waco and Ruby Ridge, all of that. I have studied this movement for a very long time. So when they started talking the language, plus I've received those warrants issued for my arrest from these people, at times it's like, great, all right.
Just can't make this stuff up.
You can't.
No.
You cannot make the. One day, I swear, I'll write another book just about this stuff.
Right.
But, and I looked at Matt that night, and I said, "Matt, the day either one of us gets anywhere near that is the day that you'll be done. This is dangerous." December of 2009. And that was an interesting time, because what was going on in December of 2009? Well, we were at the very start of the Great Recession. We had been about a year into it. Things were looking really bad. About 2 weeks later, I received a call from a very well-intentioned business person. I have great respect for him. He's a really great individual. And he asked me a question. "Sheriff, what are you going to do if it all comes down?" and it all falls apart. Now, you know that's code word, right? And I went, okay, let's chat about this more. You're talking about if the government implodes, it's all gone. What's the plan? I went, there is no plan. That means the government's gone. I said, there will be several of us that will stay in our seats trying to do the best we can to hold it all together until we can regroup. But that was the mindset that was going on. That's the mindset that trapped this and kind of really started moving. These folks locally took over the Patriot movement. They have taken over the Tea Party movement. Jay, they're not true Republicans. They are John Birch libertarians.
I would go farther to say John Birch is extremists.
Yes.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call them libertarians.
And if you haven't studied John Birch, start reading. I am telling you, you need to start reading. You need to get educated about the true mindset of what, quite frankly, this community and this state and another state are dealing with, and several other states, I should say. You brought out a lot of information. You have been demonized by this group now.
Oh, yeah.
Quite frankly, you, I, anybody around them are left-wing, Antifa, Maoist, you name it.
Yeah, I think the most commonly used term is Antifa, that I'm a communist. Not even close. I don't even think Antifa would claim me. Even if I was a member, I don't own a black hoodie. And I am certainly not a communist. I am a conservative, fiscal conservative. I'm a Christian. I believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. I don't believe in socialism. I believe in working hard and getting things by the sweat of your own brow.
Problem is they have said that you're trying to destroy Christianity.
Yeah, not even close. One of the reasons behind what I did was that I saw Christianity being twisted. I saw the gospel being weaponized to be able to be used against people. When Matt began the transition from helping the community to wanting to develop a religious theocracy, that's where I was like, pump the brakes here. There's a lot here that I'm not comfortable with. And, I did stay inside for a while to watch and observe and to listen and to kind of ingest. But it wasn't until, election 2016 that I saw some things the night of election where it turned from, okay, we won, but it turned out to be, it's our turn now, this series of anger. And it turned to, how do we use fear as a weapon, use the gospel as a weapon? And we're seeing it on the streets of Spokane now. We're seeing it in the Pacific Northwest really moving really rapidly, and it's not an okay thing.
And as a result, the Washington State House of Representatives commissioned an investigation. This investigation. Go ahead and show that one on screen. This investigation right here, the Rampart Report. We're going to go through a little bit of that report. It would take us hours to go through it in totality. But we're going to try to get as much of it as we can and try to give you a good snapshot of why, folks, everything that you're hearing from the Matt Shea camp and Matt Shea is, I'm just going to be flat, totally politically incorrect. It's a falsehood. It's a lie. It is the worst case of propaganda I have ever seen. And I think that you really need to pay attention, because I've never seen anything good that was ever based on a lie. You can't start something based on a lie and think you're going to turn it good. And it seems to be some of their mentality at times, Shay, is they justify what they're doing because it will be better in the end. And that's neither Christian philosophy, nor is it what this country is based on.
No. And I think one of the big lies right now that Matt is running with is it's the persecution of Christians.
Yes.
That is, to me, one, highly offensive, because nobody is persecuting Christians. it's the group that he belongs to that believes in this doctrine that one are being identified. Nobody is personally persecuting them. We're bringing truth forward. We're bringing fact forward. We're bringing, documents forward. We're bringing things, their plans forward. So automatically it becomes we're demonized because we're now persecuting Christians. That is completely and utterly false.
You're exactly right. So let's take a look at the Rampart Report, and let's talk about right up front why they want to make the claim that you and I, because it's not just you, it's I or anybody that is trying to show the truth about who Matt Shea is, that we are now coming after Christians.
Right.
So if we take a look at where it stands right now, there were 8 key findings, all of which that point towards committing political violence, and that has happened.
Yes.
Participate in political violence, and that has happened. And future planning for more violence. So the summary of the report, when you take a look at it, it points towards intimidation, fear, and they use that a lot.
Fear is a weapon.
This is weaponized fear. And I'll tell you what makes weaponized fear so dangerous. Weaponized fear, if I can get you that fearful, I can get you to hate something. And if I can get you to hate something, I can get you to the point where you'll do really not nice things. You'll do things that you read about in history books.
Fearful people do stupid things.
Yes.
And if you look at the definition of terror, it's the use of fear to drive agendas. And so it's the terminology used in the Rampart Report, I believe, is entirely accurate.
Yes. Subversion, sedition, and building a shadow government, and I'm going to cover that, folks. They have, quite frankly, laid the foundation of building a shadow government. They have it established in one part of Spokane County, and they were trying to build that same shadow organization on another part of Spokane County. And I'm going to show you the documents. These are documents that came from Matt, all right, that you brought forward. And they want to build that new shadow government, and ultimately the goal is to create their own state. It's a little bit deeper than that. The old school thought of the Christian identity movement, which is heavily tied to white supremacist ideology, is a white-only nation that comprises Idaho, Montana, Oregon, Washington, and Wyoming. They added Alaska about a decade or so ago, maybe might be 20 years now. That's their vision. That's the end goal. The Redoubt movement.
Yes.
Look at the map of the Redoubt, folks, and tell me it's not exactly what I just mentioned. And again, what I just mentioned to you is the things I learned over all of these years. All these years of study, very rapidly. This is not about saving the United States. This is about tearing us apart. And I can tell you that, this Russian involvement in elections that everybody likes to keep talking about, well, it's not exactly the way the Democrats paint it, but they were heavily involved in the elections. But they used both sides. They co-opted both sides to tear this nation apart, and perhaps they knew us better than we know ourselves, because they've done a fairly good job of it. When we move on, why is all that important? Well, if you take a look at it, this group wasn't just what Matt wants to paint them as. He's really tried to undermine their credibility. This group was based on, a combination of about 50 years of law enforcement experience, and a lot of that came from an FBI investigator. So highly professional. They want to disparage them, and Matt's made a lot of it. There's major announcements coming out. The harsh reality is there's nothing that he's said that's done anything to really diminish the fact or clear his name. The only thing he's tried to do is, one of the investigators donated to a Democratic candidate.
Why should that matter? She's free to believe whatever political party she is. That doesn't mean
because it's the Democrats that are coming after him, remember?
Right. It's a bipartisan commission that hired these people.
There you go. But this is what Matt is churning. Matt's always at this type of mode. Anybody that goes against him is a Democrat, a socialist, a Marxist, a Maoist. So there were thousands of hours. And folks, I can tell you there were thousands of hours. I spent many hours with these people, giving them information, talking to them about, I've known Matt Shea since 2008. One of my biggest political regrets will be ever that I endorsed him in 2008 and helped him win that election. That is one of my biggest political regrets. So here we are. This is what Matt wants to have everybody believe about those of us that have stepped up against him to counter the evil that he's brought to our community. We're all of these things. It's amazing. That's a pretty impressive list. But everybody that knows me,
right?
There's one thing, folks. I take great pride in. The extreme left hates me, and the extreme right hates me, and I'm totally fine with that. Because the 80% in the middle, that's where I'd rather be.
I'm not going to denigrate that there isn't threats within some of these communities.
Oh, there
all,
are.
From
there are.
to Spokane and the Pacific Northwest, but not from within this stuff.
But that's not us.
That isn't.
That's who they want to paint us as.
Yeah.
Because Antifa is a domestic terrorist group, period. We do have people that believe in Islam that are trying to destroy America. They do terrorist acts in America. Communism has always been trying to tear the United States down. But that's not who we are.
No.
And again, I'm fine with the left and the right extremes not liking me. I am totally just fine with that. But the thing is, anyone, like your slide says, anyone who is deemed a threat is part of that agenda, according to them. And you mentioned this, and this is a quote, that you and I, and anybody that has spoken up, is persecuting him and Christians everywhere. This isn't new, though. This is what he said about me when I did my town hall meeting in 2015. It's the same thing he said about me in 2016. This is what he says. We are coming against Christians, and it's not true.
It's a tired byline. That's not true at all.
So, what's really driving all this? There it is. Explain a little for me.
Dominionism. Dominionist theology is a group of political ideologies that seek to institute a nation governed only by Christians based on their personal understandings of biblical law or biblical Old Testament law. The extents of the rule or ways of achieving governing authority are based on that group. For example, Dominion theology can include theonomy, theocracy, but doesn't necessarily involve the advocating of Old Testament Mosaic law. But they pick bits and pieces out of Old Testament law that they choose to implement in modern day, America. There's been books that have been fictional books that have been written where, groups have come forward and, have implemented this type of theocracy, and it's scary stuff. It really is.
Yeah, it is. So this isn't just a belief, it's woven into their very behavior patterns, Matt's behavior patterns. He is highly motivated to do this. And I backed that one up. And there it is. These people under this belief system, Jay, you and I no longer have what is called freedom of choice. It's all or nothing. You live by their laws or you are done.
Yeah. It's very much a believe our way or you die.
Yeah.
I mean, there are components of this that I highly agree with. Like I'm not pro-abortion. I am pro-life. And, there are better ways of accomplishing, but it's not my job to try to push my religious beliefs on people. It's my job to love people where they're at and to let, in my religious belief, to let Jesus do the work on their hearts. This is not what they believe. They want to use their religious, the Dominionism piece of it to run their agenda. They want to run God and government along the sides. And there was always supposed to be a separation of church and state. And through their revisionist history, they're looking to say the United States was a religious nation when it was founded, which is completely false because a lot of the founding fathers were deists and some were agnostics and some were, it was made up of varied backgrounds, and all of which said, yeah, we have religious freedom to believe what we want to believe. And this may sound like an adverse point to this. They can believe this. They have the very right to believe this, but not when it begins the part to be able to hurt people. That's where things change for me.
It is. When this becomes a way of fear,
Yeah.
intimidation, and quite frankly, death, this is extremism at its worst. And we've seen it. We've seen it at Waco. We've seen this play out many, many times. So fear and stress drive extremism. We've talked about that. We've covered that. But I found this one interesting. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
So the FBI did a study going back and looking at, okay, so why do people like Alex Jones, like some of the other David Knight, some of the other conspiracy theorists that are out there, why do people commit the acts that they do? And when they went and looked at, they found that conspiracy theories very likely will spread, emerge, and evolve into the modern information marketplace. Today we have Facebook, we have social media, we have YouTube, we have Snapchat, all those, they're all infiltrated by conspiracy ideas, hey, everything from Epstein to Pizzagate, it's a conspiracy theory in some shape or form. Sure, there could be some subtle truths in some of those, but they use this fear to be able to drive violent acts. And Matt, his infrastructure, they use fear as a motivator as well. I remember nights where, tensions were escalating around the world, especially when North Korea was really getting hot and heavy, that it was, we're going to a certain alert level and you need to be ready to do these things. And we need to have this stuff, get your mags loaded and your batteries topped off, that kind of a thing. And, I lived in that fear for almost 4 years. It took its toll on my health. I was a very heavy drinker. I was a really angry guy. And since walking away from all this, it's like having a 20-pound weight lifted off of you. It's pretty funny. I left this movement and instantly lost 50 pounds. And I'm not just saying that because I walked away from 50 pounds of gear. I literally lost 50 pounds of body weight not being a part of this, because there's the stress level on your body takes an amazing toll. And fear and stress drive extremism. That drives bad choices. You can look at people within their ranks that there are some people who are incredibly unhealthy, who have chronic health conditions because they live in this environment stress.
And this is the type of press that motivated Timothy McVeigh to blow up a federal building.
Chevy and Shane Kehoe, Randy
Exactly.
Weaver. Randy Weaver has ties to the Marble community.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. So there are ties within this in some shape and form.
The Kehoe brothers have ties.
Yeah, Chevy and Shane were raised up there.
Yes. So a review of the findings. Number one, that Representative Shea participated in an act of domestic terrorism against the United States by his actions before and during the armed takeover. And they're talking the armed takeover of the Mauer Wildlife Refuge. Folks, I was talking about this in January of 2016. I did a town hall on this. And I started paying deep attention to it, and the Oregon Public Broadcasting Association did an amazing job at tracking and research. And I kind of went, okay, let's double check, because I'm not exactly one to hook, line, and sinker any media source. Because I just don't have that faith in them anymore.
I agree.
I
Yeah.
don't. So I started double checking them.
Right.
And I went to the COWS website. And I saw that the COWS website, which is the Coalition of Western States, which Matt Shea formed and organized at the Bundy 1 standoff in Nevada. Matt formed and organized this. The COWS website had their chat box up, and it had Matt Shea ginning up the fear of the Hammond family is being terrorized. Here's the harsh reality for everybody. The Hammond family in Harney County, Oregon, did not want Ammon Bundy or anyone to do what they did. They didn't want them to come up. They didn't want to be part of this, and they told them that.
They even turned themselves in.
They turned themselves in, yes.
Right.
So, but it was Matt and COWS that started ginning that fear up. And I tracked it all the way through December, and it got more and more shrill, if you will. And the next thing you know, I'm watching it play out in real time with the protest and then the eventual takeover of that refuge. Talk about Operation Cold Reality for me.
Sure. Operation Cold Reality was an operations order sent out by Matt via email to COWS, Coalition of Western States, which includes people like Heather Scott, Mayor Pro Tem of Las Vegas, Michelle Fiore, Tony and Shelley Shelton, who were committee people based out of Nevada. There were other various legislators throughout the West.
Former Sheriff Richard Mack.
Yeah. I mean, former law enforcement's in there. So you talk about law enforcement being recruited. So this particular document was sent out, and these are just a couple of screenshots that they're included within the evidence of the report itself. But, I mean, it breaks down the role of who needs to handle what. And this particular document was sent out just days before the Malheur standoff took place. And, you know, you can see there are multiple different organizations here that, how do you coordinate that many organizations prior to a major takeover like this? I mean,
Because it's already coordinated.
you are correct in that, and that it was pre-coordinated. You know, there's proof within the report. We'll get to that in a second. But this type of operational order was very common within the Shea organization. I'm sure it still is pretty common that Matt, being the one of the head mouthpieces of it, you know, puts this out. It gets militia in order, it gets assets in order, it gets communications in order, supplies, all the things a commanding general would need in an army.
Your job was to?
My job was to provide security for Matt and to make sure there was an evacuation plan and to make sure that, you know, that lawyers were lined up and everything that a personal security detail would be needed. Now, thankfully, God did not line it up to even let me go near this. And I look back on that now, and I know that's divine providence, that if I was to be involved in this, I don't think I would be sitting across the table from you today. There's a very high likelihood I could have been in handcuffs. And I think that,
Or worse.
Absolutely, or worse. And I think that this document was very common. These are things he would work on, plan, set. This takes a lot of planning to do. And I think that, this all took place days before.
I want to point out something that some people I've heard when they look at these documents go, but look, it says right here, goal, peaceful resolution, no one gets hurt, prevent the government from doing something stupid. He was down there for peace.
No, he wasn't.
No, he wasn't.
No.
You and I both know that because there's other documents behind this document that outline that, this was supposed to be the Alamo. This was supposed to be the trigger for a civil war.
I think that's a really important point to make, that in order to have justification to believe what they believe and to have a dominion over an area, they have to have holy justification. And one of those is they have to have the other side make the mistake first, but push them just to the point where they're walking up to their toes or just barely over the line. And they're just sitting there poking and poking and poking, hoping that somebody makes a mistake, pulls that trigger a little too quickly, and it all unloads. And once that single shot is fired, I mean, it's Lexington Green.
Yes.
Right? It's a modern day Lexington Green. That's what they're looking for. They're the bully in the school, or the little kid in the schoolyard running up, poking the big guy with the stick, thinking, you know what? If he turns around and hits me, at some point, this is what they want. They need this. They thrive off this controversy. I talk about how it's exhausting. We ran from fight to fight to fight to fight to fight. That's because they're always looking for the next opportunity for the big bad government. And yeah, there's some elements that we need to thin out, but they're looking for that opportunity to say, oh, they did it. They did it first. We have the justification to do it back. That's why they used the Patriot movement, because Patriots, once Lexington Green took place, it was a justification for civil war.
Now, folks, if you
or rebellion,
if you don't believe what Jay said, I want to draw your attention above the goal section to the strategy section. And I want you to take a harsh look at number 3. All right? Number 3 says very explicitly, expose them as tyrants by making them act like tyrants. This is a classic tool that, quite frankly, has been used on both sides, the left and the right. How would I know this? Because I spent a week at the Harvard Leadership Institute last summer. One of the speakers was the former head of the NAACP nationally. And he talked about, some of these protests. Well, the pre-planning is who among you wants to be the one that gets beat up? Because we're going to put you up front. We're going to make the other side take that action. We're going to have cameras there. We're going to have everything there, because the minute they go off on you, we are going to spin it. Look how evil and how bad they are.
It's all about the optic.
It is all about the optic. And what is one of the key elements of this op plan? Make sure that the media is down there, and make sure that you start driving the narrative of the media.
There were other emails that I believe were provided to the investigators that talked about, making sure that the media was aware of the true narrative that was going on. And that's, this was the start. This was the guideline document to what was about to happen. But you're right that they wanted the narrative that the big, bad, tyrannical government was coming down, when in essence, they committed burglary, broke into a facility, took things out of said facility that belonged to the government. Destroyed things. Millions of dollars worth of damage, to that matter. Of course, they would say it's owned by the people, which it is, but at the same time, they still committed burglary. There's no reason for them to be there.
Yeah, it's owned by the people, and I am not too happy that you broke into my house.
Well, imagine if somebody came and took over the public safety building.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, there we are. Operation Cold Reality before December 15th. This is all out of the report right here, folks. It outlines how Cal members, including Representative Shea, participated in a total of 4 meetings with Ammon Bundy. This can be verified not just by looking at this document, but when I did my town hall in 2016, you can find it on YouTube, Sheriff Ozzie Knezovich, The Threats We Faced, January 2016. I show where the Oath Keepers, the head of the Oath Keepers, Mr. Stewart Rhodes, said, this was stupid. This is really bad. We kind of weren't this. We didn't want this. But if the big bad government comes and goes heavy-handed, that will be the Civil War. I have those documents. I have those screenshots. I presented it our last when you and I did a town hall together. Folks, even their side of the line said that this was pre-planned and it was ill-conceived.
I think one of the key things here, that the dark data area here, this comes from witnesses who were involved within the planning process. I personally wasn't. The pieces I had were security pieces, but I didn't know that these calls were taking place. I think the dark data areas are actually to protect human life.
They are.
Because if these individuals were identified, I have no doubt in my mind that assassination orders would be put out for them. Because what we're seeing here is super key, because now the law enforcement community and federal authorities need to be involved. That is super crucial, that if there's an opportunity here to pursue charges, that this does need to take place, because they planned a rebellion. They planned sedition. They planned destruction, and ultimately somebody died because of this activity.
They did. And Matt Shea has Lavoy Finnegan's blood on his hands. I've said
all
that
these
from the
people
beginning.
do. All these people do.
And the thing that I want to stress is what you said. That witness that has been blacked out here came forward. They were eyewitnesses to these type of calls.
Right.
And again, Blaine Cooper, who ended up testifying for the government, even said there were discussions. Before we took this thing over, there were discussions. So Blaine Cooper's testimony was further verified by the witness who came forward.
Yes.
And if you don't think that these threats are real, ladies and gentlemen, Anthony Bosworth and his daughter, and I believe even maybe his wife, sent me Facebook posts. And in those Facebook posts is a picture of the Inlander cover of the Inlander, and the story they did on my town hall in 2015, with guns pointed at my head. That's a reality. That's a cold reality, if you will.
It is. And they have no problem threatening life, threatening property, to push the agenda forward. Even I've had death threats. I've had threats of people wanting to kill me, kill my family. I've had personal property damaged, those kind of things as a result of this. They have utter disregard for human life, as much as they want to champion human life.
Yes. So, further, Representative Shea did not disclose his COWS affiliation at the meeting during which he met with folks down in Harnett County. It goes even deeper than that. Matt basically lied to the Washington State Ethics Committee about his involvement in this. And that's
law enforcement officials while they were down there.
Yes. And he was actually acting as recon, if you will, because he went from these meetings to meeting with Ammon Bundy and telling Ammon Bundy where all the feds were along the way, what they were doing, with the assets that they had at the table, the whole 9 yards. If you really, really want to get a very terrifying look at what this looks like, talk to Sheriff Dave Ward someday. I had Sheriff Ward on this show right after his experience with these individuals. They terrorized his family. They terrorized his parents. I mean, 75-year-old people. They were terrorizing them, and the threats, and it's all this is real. This actually happened.
Yeah, they've texted, they do all sorts of things in order to threaten violence if you don't go along or if you don't shut up. I mean, they showed up, armed men showed up at the sheriff's department's office down there and in the judge's, the facility down there. They're deadly serious.
And the reason they picked Harney is because the sheriff had 4 deputies.
Yeah.
They knew that they could overwhelm him. And I'll never forget Dave's words to me. Ozzie, if they get away with this, there will be no small community in America that is safe.
But they like small communities because it's easy. There's a lot of information disconnect. It's easy to educate the populace in those areas like that. That's why you don't see Matt spending a lot of time in his own district. You see him spending time in the outlying areas in the more remote.
That's exactly. It is a plan.
Yeah.
And he spends a lot of time in Idaho.
A lot of time in Idaho.
So, the second finding was Representative Shea engaged in intimidation tactics against the political opponents. I got this phone call, ladies and gentlemen, from his opponent, Amy Biviano, going, Ozzie, my son is at home by himself. He's terrified because he has men, and it looks like Matt Shea, standing in our yard. Nobody really, that's a new one for a lot of people. I got that phone call. I got that panic phone call from Amy. And that is a reality because there he is. This is what he did. There was an 11-year-old kid in that house that was terrified.
This is a common tactic. It was here. He's standing in front of his political opponent's house. You also got another phone call, didn't you?
I did.
That was from me.
Yeah.
Where Matt was standing behind my vehicle, pointing, talking, and who knows what he was saying here several weeks ago.
Yep.
I walked out of a restaurant in the commission of my day job where he pointed at me and was talking to a couple and said, look at that extremist over there. And I got in my vehicle and I contacted you. And I sat there. And it was a good 5 minutes where he did this. But he knows exactly what he's doing. It's that running up to the line. Imagine if I would have put my car in gear and started to back up.
Oh,
imagine
you've been coming after him.
Yeah. Or that kid would have come out of that house with a baseball bat or something. It's just gray enough where he can run just up to the line and then run back going, oh, look what they did to me. Oh, playing the victim. This is what they do. He knew it was my car. He has an active surveillance network. He's had people follow me. They're not good, but he's had people follow me. Yeah. But I mean, he knows exactly what he's doing, but he uses fear and intimidation to try to drive his own agenda.
And folks, this isn't just the only opponent. Take the time, talk to all of them.
Oh, talk to Josh Aratola. I was working on that team at that time.
Yes, Josh Aratola.
That guy went through the ringer.
Yeah, they did. You guys were very effective.
Well, and I got to tell you, as part of this healing process, I've gone to the individuals that, frankly, I've sinned against and have tried to make amends and said, I'm sorry. I think that was how I opened the conversation with you, is that I'm sorry for what I've done. I made an apology to Spokane and said, I'm sorry for pushing this forward. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought that these things were okay, and I don't know how I justified them at the time, but it was because I was in great fear for what was about to happen, thinking that the Maoist communist insurgents were taking over.
Yeah. And I can tell you, folks, that's exactly how Jay came to me. He said, look, there's something really bad about ready to happen. I can't be part of it. I can't be part of this. And he said, I have done some really bad things to you over the years. I'm sorry for that. And I said, I'm glad you recognized it, and let's try to stop it now. Let's make sure that this doesn't continue. And, over the last year or so, year and a half, going on almost 2 years now, you and I have become very close friends, and there are people out there that I think can respect when somebody comes and said, I was wrong.
I think the public, well, at least the public coming out of Matt's echo chambers, says you're my handler or things like that, and that's just absurd.
Yeah,
you're not. I mean, we're two individual thinkers. We both know that what's best for Spokane, what's best for the Pacific Northwest, and we know what's right and what's wrong. I mean, there are things we don't agree on.
Yes.
We're a little bit different in terms of our faith background. We both believe Jesus Christ is the Son of God, so that's a good focus, centering point for us. But I think we both come at it from a perspective of this is not okay. This is not safe for Spokane. This is not healthy for Spokane. It's not healthy for the law enforcement community, for the citizens, for the city government of Spokane. This type of extreme behavior is what's going to continue to tear Spokane apart when we have to heal this town.
You're absolutely right. And, when you take a look at all the things that he's done, he's escalating, and he continues to escalate.
Dramatically so.
And, that's why
this is what they want you to know.
That
right
is
here.
exactly
We
the
can
message
get to you.
that they sent.
Yeah.
They sent that to me on multiple occasions. We can get to you. We can get to your family. We can get to you. And, as well as I do, I could have had a much easier time in my political life, if you will, if I had just kissed the ring and Matt does no wrong. The problem is I'm just not designed that way. Right's right, wrong's wrong, and I am an elected official because I believe in my country and my community and the people who put me here. Everything that Matt stands for is so foreign and counter to what the founding principles of this nation are. And it's so foreign and counter to Christianity. And it just, honestly, the thing that just drives me up the wall is the way he opens every speaking event by invoking the name of Christ.
That is, to me, one of the most offensive points of what he does. I mean, I'm not going to denigrate the choice that he may believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, but everything else, all the other theology, everything else, I think completely negates that point.
Yes.
That he invokes the name of God, that he uses it to rally the crowd, that people in the crowd think, oh, I am falling in line behind a Christian. He's a
great Christian man.
But what he's doing, what some of the other churches in the area are doing, is they're using God as a weapon in politics. I mean, there's a pastor in the area who just said, I don't want any Democrats at my church. You've got 6 months to repent. Who is he to be able to say on behalf of God, you Democrat can't be at my church? I'll tell you right now, any Democrat that's listening, you are more than welcome at my church anytime. You come in and we're going to love you and we're going to let Jesus work on your heart. It's not my job to say what you politically should believe. Jesus was neither a Democrat nor a Republican. Our king, our God, is not a Democrat or a Republican. Let them do the work. Stop focusing on a current kingdom, but focus on the future one.
Yeah. But they believe that they have to establish that kingdom before Christ will come.
Absolutely.
That's the Dominionism heart, is they have to have this before the second coming.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Paula White, just one of the religious leaders in the White House, just said this morning that she had a vision that God gave her of Trump riding on a horse next to Christ, dethroned with jewels and on a white stallion in the apocalypse. I mean, this is what they believe. This Dominionism is not just located here in Spokane. It is nationwide, and it is growing rapidly.
Well, further findings. Representative Shea engaged in secure online chats using the code name. Can you pronounce that for me?
Sure. The correct pronunciation is Velum Bellator, and the literal Latin interpretation is Truth Warrior. Some have said True Warrior. It's Truth, Truth, warrior.
included identification of oppositional political activists and condoned violence. Here are the people that were involved in that chat. As you noticed, Representative Shea is there. Contrary to what he wants people to believe that, oh, I came in after the fact. No.
He was part of the group the entire time.
Of the group. And folks, this isn't even the tip of the iceberg. This might be a snowflake of the iceberg of the chats that I have read through that you have in the packets of information. This is just pieces of it. And this is talking about grabbing people by the hair and slamming their faces into Jersey barriers, by hanging them up on flagpoles.
Say it.
Especially ones with nipple rings. I was like, oh, good grief. But wait, you don't really need that. If you cinch up the zip ties tight enough, you don't need the rings. And they think this is funny. This is a snowflake on the iceberg. This isn't even the tip.
This was prior to the Antifa Day of Rage, where they wanted some type of activity here in Spokane where they would have the holy justification to begin shooting back.
Trigger.
They want any group who's going to come forward to commit an act of violence. I mean, take a good example would be Joey Gibson's group, Patriot Prayer. Mm-hmm. They'll go to downtown Portland and they'll get face to face with these Antifa young men and women. And yes, that group attacks and all of a sudden it's game on. And Joey's group has every justification. I'm sorry, Christ never, went toe to toe with the priests and chief priests and said, yeah, just hit me. Come on, hit me. He didn't do that. And this is where Christianity gets twisted. And, yes, I was part of this conversation. Yes, I witnessed it. Yes, I was very disturbed by what I was seeing at this point, as I was a part of all this. And this was a beginning of, my transition out of Matt's infrastructure. I think an important piece of the is that Matt is chiming in on this.
Yes,
if you go back there on the bottom.
Right here, right at the bottom.
Yeah. He was commenting, he had seen this. He saw this entire chat. That's not the way the piece of software works. He was added in. He saw it. He would have been in the entire conversation, irregardless of what any of the other alt-right news agencies say.
Right. So further findings that from 2014 through 2019, he condoned this type of intimidation to include people of other faiths. And this is part of the finding. I don't want to dime you out, but who's W22?
That's me.
Okay.
There's people out there who have already identified. I think you can look through the narrative and know that it's me. And you know what? They've given those names to protect some very, very important people. I'm public. I'm out there. It would not be healthy for them to come after me and the family. I think law enforcement community is well aware of that. And yeah, these were things that as a security guy for Matt, it was my job to help plan his personal security detail. This particular event on September 21st, 2015, Spokane City Council is providing a salutation to CARE. And I'm sure they have their skeletons in their closet as well, but Matt had held a rally outside. And the idea was if he invited enough people and spoke and got the crowd angry enough that as the Muslim families were coming in, they were afraid. They were afraid walking into that building. Slurs were yelled at them as they came in. And honestly, none of them were really Arabic in descent. They were actually Eastern European Muslims. And so, there's some differences, and that's really key. But it didn't matter because Matt wanted to use fear and intimidation and speak his piece and talk about the Holy Land trial and all the pieces that he always defaults to. And sure, there may be some legitimacy to that, but this is the type of activity that continued to drive fear that he likes to stir up, to hope that maybe one of those people walking through would pick up something, throw it, cause it, and all of a sudden the Muslims are attacking us.
Yes.
But not one piece of violence took place that day from anyone within the Muslim community.
If you take a look at the second paragraph, he went with Ammon to the new Code of the West Conference in Whitefish, Montana. Significance there, folks. Right now, Whitefish, Montana is a hotbed of white supremacism. It is. It major problems there with white supremacists. Again, just another piece of the puzzle, and it's hard when you step on the stage with that type of influence to say you're clean. He wants a justification for basically a holy war, a biblical war. He put that out in his thesis on biblical warfare.
And it's not a sermon notes, I can tell you that.
Well, there we go. These are not sermon notes.
No.
Here are the rules of war, folks, right there. And if you fall outside of all these things, you have to surrender on their terms, no period. And it says, if you do not yield, they kill all the males.
But I think if you're looking at sub-point 3 there, if they yield, they must pay their share of work or taxes.
Yes.
I want to draw a really kind of unique conclusion to Sharia law. That in Sharia law, there's also a very similar line. It's called the jizya. It's actually a tax that if you are in a land where Islam is taking over and you are a foreigner who doesn't believe like them, you must pay your share of work or taxes. And if you don't, they kill you. Now, there are things here that both you and I disagree with. We're pro-life. Mm-hmm. We're,
Yeah.
pro-man and woman.
I don't like communist. I believe in the Bible and the Ten Commandments, which I think Matt really needs to focus on. Number 9, thou shalt not bear false witness. I truly believe that life starts at conception, and that's just the way it is.
Right.
I'm not going to back away from any of that, but I don't believe in killing people.
Well, right. And it's not, like I've said before, I mean, I have friends within different communities here in Spokane. I have a family member who's part of the LGBT community that I love very dearly, but I would never want that person dead, nor in the Bible does it instruct me in the New Testament to kill that individual should they ever not comply.
One of my very, very good friends that helped me form the Spokane County Human Rights Task Force is LGBTQ, and he's a good person. No one deserves that type of fear.
Right.
And I can tell you that they live in fear because of what Matt has been saying and the way he portrays things. And folks, as Jay pointed out, this is not a sermon note. This is a battle plan.
I just have a very dear friend who moved away from Spokane. He was part of the African American community here and said, I am not going to raise my mixed race son in Spokane knowing that this guy and these people are out there. And he moved back home to Hawaii where it was safe.
Yeah. And again, the use of deception. They aren't going to tell you the truth. So when Matt says, well, you need to talk to all my friends, they can tell you, Matt, in your own words, we're not owed the truth. Number 3, right there. Do not owe the truth to someone who will abuse it. Because if I know the truth about what you're doing, that abuse is, I'm going to stop you.
I think there's a story, and I know he'd be okay with me telling this, is that a friend of mine, Tanner Rowe, dear friend, he's a deist. But when this was all beginning the process, he brought questions to Matt, who he lived in his district, and said, tell me why you believe this. And instead of meeting with him, discussing with it, and being able to say, hey, we disagree, but we can be mutually respectful to each other, he commented to myself and another individual, I don't owe the truth to a pagan. And I didn't make the connection on that until I saw this document when I went, whoa. He literally, from his own words, multiple times said, I don't owe the truth to a pagan. So much so that he got very angry with me about pressing the subject of having him sit down with somebody who elected him and voted for him. And instead, he was like, no. And this is what he believes.
And then you mentioned that assassination is okay.
Yeah.
Well, it is right there. It says so. Assassination and sabotage. Assassination to remove tyrants, and he has labeled me that description, that adjective he is throwing at me. It's just. It's not murder. So these people don't care. If you do not believe the way they do, you are a tyrant, especially if you're in a leadership position.
It still baffles me that on one hand they can hold up abortion and talk about the sanctity of human life, and then on the other side of it, hold up yourself, other government officials, and say, I would kill these people to forward my way of life. Life is sacred. All life is sacred. And just because you don't agree with somebody doesn't mean you go and put a bullet in their head.
Exactly. And I how to restore the government. We're going to liaison with gang members that have honor. I've not met very many gangs that have honor. They don't. It's just an amazing document when you read through it. And this was authored by Representative Shea.
I think it's really important to let the public know that every one of these documents was forensically analyzed, and they came and were authored by Representative Matthew Shea. These documents have not been altered. They were passed out at a 2-day meeting in August of 2016, and these are reference documents that he wanted all of us and this movement, the cows, and we'll be beginning in just a few minutes or in the next episode talking about what they're attempting to do by using these documents.
I think we're deep into probably the next episode.
Okay.
So number 5, we have Representative Shea engaged in counter surveillance, which he does this, folks. This is true. And the apparatus of repression. This is an actual email, and I looked at that again last night. I actually took the link that's in there and tracked it back, and it was created by basically an anti-government blogger who digs deep. And the significance of this document, ladies and gentlemen, is it outlines the entire intelligence network of the state of Washington and law enforcement, and has our names, basically floor plans of buildings that, these are high security type buildings that people really shouldn't know too much about. And he sent this out to everybody so everybody would know all that sensitive information, every ounce, the organizational structure. Folks, I'm on that board. I am on the board of the Washington State Fusion Center. I am the Western or the Eastern District representative for the Washington Sheriff's Association Sheriffs and Police Chiefs on that board. And when I went through this document, I went, oh, I remember some of this stuff, and I remember this term secret on some of this document. And Matt Shea sent this out. Again, names, badge numbers, home addresses, personal information. This went out.
This document itself, out of all the findings, I think probably this finding and the Malheur finding are probably some of the most important ones, because this particular document I received towards the end of my tenure with Matt, that back it up a slide if you can. There's technology.
Yes.
That law enforcement uses to make sure the public is safe. And it complies with the Constitution. It's ruled on. There's nothing here that isn't in this document. But this document details out all this, especially in terms of the identities of officers within the intelligence infrastructure that are there to make sure that the bad guys that are out there, the Mexican gangs, white supremacist gangs, guns, drugs, sex trafficking, ISIS, that these guys can do the job they've been trained how to do. This document identifies them. This puts every one of their lives on the line. And I remember going through this document, and I recently met one of those guys purely in passing, and I had to confess to him, I was like, I know exactly what you do, and I know this is why I know it. And we're friends, and he was shocked that I even knew what he did. But because this document exists and is circulated, very lives are on the line. I mean, there's nobody who has sworn an oath to protect and uphold the Constitution should support this document. There isn't any law enforcement that should say, well, it was okay that Representative Shea had that. Because guess what? Your badge number now is in the hands of the bad guys.
Yes.
And if they are naive enough to think that there are people within the ranks of these people, whether it's Shea's ranks or whatever, that haven't shared this with their buddies and information is disseminated, you and I both know that's...
This went structure wide.
You bet it did. You bet it did.
So in 16, this one for me is one that I just really hits me hard, because he is training young teenagers and young adults in the art of holy war. And there's video of it. And here's the email that was sent back and forth between Matt and the leader of this group. And folks, I want you to focus in on who is training some of these young people and what doctrines they're being trained under. If you take a look at the sentence right before the last sentence, it says Pastor Weaver. Pastor John Weaver. Pastor John Weaver is a white supremacist. He's an old school Confederate white supremacist. There is no debate on this. Zero. And that is who is indoctrinating these young men. This is one of the worst parts of everything that I've seen. You can indoctrinate adults, but when you start indoctrinating children, you've stepped way over the line.
I mean, even ISIS trains children. And the leader of Team Rugged at the time was even trying to get funding to be able to travel to Arizona to meet up with other people to travel to the Mideast to go kill Muslims.
Let's see if I can get this one to play.
This is a video obtained from Team Rugged's Facebook page where they were just getting done with a training activity. And I don't know if we can have the audio come through on it, but it says it here at the bottom. These kids are sitting around the lunch table talking about the training they just went through. And this next line is probably the scariest. If all else fails, a suicide charge will usually get you something. They're talking about committing suicide in the name of religion to be able to kill the enemy. I'm sorry, the parallels to Islam, to ISIS, to terrorist groups, the parallels there. They are training children how to fight this. And that is one of the findings. And that's very scary. And the counter argument they'll say is, well, even young kids should be trained how to use rifles. Sure, I trained my sons how to do it. My kids even had, one of his birthday parties had an airsoft war. And in counter to that,
well, you got charged.
Right.
They accused you of doing the same thing.
Right. They took my kid's birthday party photo that I put up on Facebook and then said I was training my own child army. They took kids who were my son's friends and put it up there and said that I was training them. I wasn't even anywhere near that thing. But at the same time, that's the level that they're willing to go. They're willing to put children and threaten other kids' lives and put their identities online to do that. Notice this video, it was blurred.
Yes. Number 7, he wrote the biblical basis of war, which he did. And you saw in the prior slides some of the thoughts. And again, these are not sermon notes, as he tried to portray them as. This is a battle plan. And, we covered that one in a prior slide. I put that back up there to reinforce. You don't believe, you don't capitulate, you die.
Yeah, this document, when it was presented, it's a while ago, so the memory's fuzzy, but I remember them walking through this, and there was something he said specifically that kind of shook me and said, if you were ever found in possession of these documents, you could be arrested. I firmly believe that now to be true. Anyone in possession of these who believes this stuff, this is sedition. This is scary. Their goal like in the beginning, is to set up a shadow government.
It is. Engaged in and promoted the Patriot Movement, militia training and readiness exercises for conflicts against his own government and state government, local, federal, and law enforcement. He attacks law enforcement a lot. There are two of my deputies that he has openly attacked. Got sued for one of them. So again, you're in there, and you're talking about their operations, their structure, where the safe houses were going to be, how he was going to be moved around. Matt lives in fear, doesn't he?
Yeah, I believe so. I think he'll say he doesn't, but he lives in fear that any day a black van's going to pull up, a bag's going to be thrown over his head, and he's going to be driven up to some type of FEMA camp up near Sandpoint. That's bogus. Nobody's going to do that unless you commit a crime. If you commit a crime, then you're going to be held accountable for that.
But we're not going to throw a bag over your head. We're going to put handcuffs on you. We're going to walk you, put you in jail, and you'll have your day in court.
Or you'll get your due process.
Yes, as he claims he's not getting. Here's the problem with his claim of no due process. He wasn't given. No, he was given every opportunity to address these things.
Absolutely,
he was asked to, talk to the investigators, which it's his right under our Constitution not to self-incriminate. But he had his chance, and I will offer Matt Shea his chance. Once again, I have done this multiple times. Anytime you want to come and talk, Matt, I'll come and talk to you, and you can tell me why I'm wrong. You can show me where I'm wrong. I welcome you any day.
Well, and these are the type of operations that they were practice events. They're active practice events where, a SIG center, a signal center is built, housed. This next piece we'll talk about in just a second, but it's the idea is you practice and practice and practice. So when the time comes, it's the turn of a switch. I mean, it's mental memory muscle, yep. And they're very good at it. And they have operations, they have resources, they have the firepower, they have the communications infrastructure. And one of the scariest pieces is that
they've infiltrated.
They have infiltrated. Aries and Races, Red Cross, they have assets in place that are in there that, they work in conjunction with, work very closely with, or have people that are part of those organizations. That these are agencies that are designed to help you and I in Red Cross. I mean, they work with things, like Samaritan's Purse, where they have to coordinate and where do assets go. But if they know where assets are going to be and they have somebody reporting back through the Amron network, they use things like digital communications overhand.
Amron for people that don't know?
Sure. Amron is the American Readout Radio Operators Network. It's a project that was started by Jack Robertson, a.k.a. John Jacob Schmidt, specifically designed to create a communications infrastructure that I believed initially was there, that if things fall apart. Ham radio is a very effective means of communication. I've used it before because I had to communicate with emergency cleanup in North Spokane, and it's highly effective. It's reliable. But when it's used as a weapon to understand where assets are going to be placed at, where supplies are going to be placed at, that somebody's a double agent and working for Red Cross, Aries, or Races, or even Samaritan's Purse for that matter, that they coordinate all together and say, the supply truck's going to be here. How easy is it because they're already practicing where to pick up these supplies, how to take it and reroute it.
Exactly. These are amazing documents to read through. This one was, at the Operation Premonition was Donald Trump was going to win the election, and the world was going to melt down, and they were going to step up and, I want you to look at the bottom line here, folks. Not 1 ounce of this says that they are going to preserve the United States. They're only going to restore and preserve principles found, not restore the Constitution, but principles found. This is an important document. So here was the scenario. For the sake of time, I'm going to just kind of scoot through this. The risk assessment, all the thought process behind it. For those of you who are going to look at this on a computer, you can stop and freeze frame it.
This last piece is probably the most important piece of this entire document.
There you go. Go ahead and explain it.
Based on the evidence obtained in this investigation, and there's been a lot of naysayers out there online, even over in the State House, who have said, "Where's the evidence?" Yeah, you're right. There's some things that are not allowed in this public document because people's lives could be on the line. But based on evidence obtained in this investigation, it is more probable than not that Representative Shea is likely to plan, direct, and engage in additional future conflicts that could carry with them significant risk of bloodshed, loss of life. It is the opinion of the investigators that on a probable basis, more than not, Representative Shea presents a growing risk of threat through others and political violence.
There you go.
50 years of experience, thousands of hours of research, countless numbers of witnesses have come forward who've said this is not right. And this document's out there. I mean, it's thick. I mean, people can see it.
And one of the fears are if they were to choose to arrest Representative Shea, that we would end up with another Waco, Ruby Ridge type scenario. That is a true fear.
Absolutely it is. It should be.
So he will continue to go and do the things that you're seeing here, folks. He's already betrayed the public trust to the nth degree, but he wants the readout. Readout, remember, is that special homeland for those who think and believe as they do. And I gave you the states. He'll use his seat in government to achieve it. The final determination, he must never again be allowed to engage, plan, or commit political violence. He must be removed from office and prosecuted. Folks, this isn't 1776, but these people truly believe it is. They truly believe this. This is what they believe. I throw that slide in because all you ever see is 1776. One, this isn't 1776. Two, Matt Shea is not George Washington. None of these people would amount to a hill of beans in the scope and realm of those founding fathers. Not one of them could hold their hat. These are true tyrants. These people want to unravel everything those founding fathers stood for, and that is the harsh reality. This is their Declaration of Independence. This was crafted in July of 2016 is what it has there. You're familiar with this document. You know who crafted it. These are their demands. You would think that when you read number one, it sounds like I'm talking with Antifa. Stop the militarization of police, SWAT teams, and unelected agencies. Folks, we're not being militarized. It's a myth that was created by the extreme left and extreme right and propagated by a unwise, uneducated media. It's not happening.
A changing time does call for changing equipment to be smarter, to work smarter.
Exactly. Their big problem is they're afraid if we have any of this equipment, we can stop what they want to do. That's the bottom line.
It's for officer and law enforcement safety.
Yep.
That if they're shooting at a pickup truck rolling down the road, you have an armored vehicle. Yeah, exactly.
And I can tell you why we haven't, because we had to deal with the pre-Matt Shea era of the Phineas priesthood. And we actually had the conversations because we didn't have any armor of, well, we'll use a dump truck because it's got heavy metal sides. And I went, time out. What you're going to create is basically a ricochet bin. A bad move. But they outgunned us, and they had explosives. They had it all. And you wonder why we have what we have. It's to stop them. So this is the oath. That word, do you know what that word really means, folks? That word says, I'm going to call upon myself a curse if I break it. That's what that word stands for, is a curse. You are going to invoke a curse upon yourself if you break this oath.
A lot of this ties back to the August meeting in 2016 where Barry and Ann Bird were presenting and talking about that if you break your word against God, because the equation between God and politics is there, and they've conflated the line terribly so.
And there it is. There's the oath. Do you see the United States in that oath? No, it's not there.
And I don't think it's in the Bible either that I remember.
No. But there's nothing in there. They talk about their assemblies and committees of whole. This is their shadow government. That's their shadow government agenda. That's the shadow government they were going to form in Spokane County, and who was going to do it. And we know all those people. You and I know some of them personally.
Yeah.
And this is their game plan. This is what they were going to do. This are the meetings they were going to do. They were going to gently subvert in and gain public trust. They were going to recruit soccer moms and everybody else. They were going to build their networks. They were going to recruit young people who want to protect their community, ROTC. They were going to build their communication sets, and they were going to reach out to me. It's time to sit down with the sheriff. How we help him. By this point, hopefully we have won the public support, right? They have won it, and the buzz has been created. He will want to gain the public support, but we will keep him at arm's length, and he will be aware of the General Assembly, but not the leadership.
That's correct.
That is who they are, folks. They are chameleons. They make it sound like we're here to help. We're here to, and all they're doing, because if it all falls apart, their design is to use this to supplant and subvert the local electeds that are dealing with that emergency and establish their own government and take the government over. This is their plan.
Absolutely.
And that pretty much wraps where we're at today. I know we're probably extremely over multiple timelines.
Right.
I'm not even sure where we are on a timeline.
There's just so much information to cover that anybody who's been listening to these series of shows is probably sitting back and is just feeling so massively overwhelmed. And I think one of the things that we can both speak to and say is, yeah, there's a lot of information. There's a lot of data here, thousands of documents. But one of the things that somebody can do in this circumstance, I mean, one, if they're in the 4th District, is vote.
Yes.
They can absolutely vote in 2020. He does not have to come back to power. Now, I would implore the legislature to make a decision in the next coming weeks. I would even implore the federal authorities, don't let this opportunity slip through your fingers.
I would agree. There's enough probable cause here to warrant a grand jury. And I believe that that's what needs to happen. We need to find a way to make sure that this individual is held accountable for the devastation that he has caused in many people's lives and for the loss of life that he has caused. And that, I truly believe, it warrants a grand jury. We are much better than this as a people. It's the hate on both sides that have driven us to this point.
Absolutely. We're so far polarized in Spokane County that look at what it's fostered and created. Yeah,
Yes.
we can believe differently. We can have friendships of different faiths, backgrounds, orientations. But when we put the ideology first that, if you don't believe like I believe, therefore you need to be slaughtered. I mean, ultimately that's what it says.
Yes.
And if there were to be a major incident within 2020, the infrastructure is there. They've got it.
Yes.
This is literally turnkey. Tomorrow, if something were to happen and heaven forbid you and half your deputies were wiped out. These guys are ready to roll.
Yes, they are.
They have,
And I get the phone calls all the time, folks. They are ready to roll. Some of them are good people that have been, sucked into something that they really don't understand.
until it's too late.
Until it's too late. But the bottom line is, what we presented today is literally a snowflake on top of a iceberg. It's not even the tip of the iceberg. It is just a simple snowflake. Again, I'm going to reiterate, it took me months to just get to a good understanding, a grasp, and I haven't still gotten through it all. These posts that they made, there are many that you captured. So they're chilling. They're very, very chilling. So, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate the fact that you came in. I appreciate the fact that you stepped up and did the right thing.
Thanks for your forgiveness.
And, the last thing in life is to hold a grudge, because holding a grudge means you have to harbor anger, and anger is self-destructive.
It is.
And, brother, I just thank you for doing the right thing.
Well, and someday you and I have to stand before the throne and be held accountable for our actions. And for our non-faith listeners, that's okay. The opportunity is always there to speak about faith. But we will be held accountable for what we did in this life. And I personally don't want to stand before the creator of the universe and say, I didn't do my part to try to make sure that the actual saving gospel and the truth about your love was abused. And I did nothing about it.
Amen. Folks, this is Sheriff Ozzie Knezovich with the Sheriff's Report. I hope you found this interesting. Have a great day.